Hello there, and thank you for joining me today for Mandala Monday. Today we're going to be exploring a mandala created with the Teal Tango collage papers, and I just want to give you a look at what we did last week, and that is we created a mandala with the Jeweled Leaves Mandala Collage Art Kit. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the templates, the black and white templates from the Jeweled Leaves collection, and we're going to be printing them on the collage papers from the Teal Tango collection. So I will show you how to do that in a moment. We'll go through the printer settings. What you're going to be doing is looking for the quarter sheets and the full sheets so that you can print the templates onto these collage papers. The Teal Tango color wheel has the analogous colors. So those analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Has red, purple, red, orange, yellow, orange, and then the complementary color to orange, red, which is blue, green. So complementary colors are across from each other on the color wheel. So we've already explored this color palette on Sampler Sunday. We had fun creating some different mini collages. And then today we will be creating a mandala with the same palette. So let's get started. Now I'm going to walk you through the first step, which is printing your printables. We're going to go ahead and print the mandala shapes on the Teal Tango collage papers. So the two documents that you want to open are the Teal Tango collection collage papers and the Jeweled Leaves collection black and white templates. We're going to be first printing the mandala shapes onto a quarter sheet of collage paper. So you can see that there's 4 clusters of shapes, and we want to go ahead and scroll down till we get to the quarter sheets. So there's 4 different quarter sheets. You can choose all or any of them. I'm going to go ahead and choose this first one, which is the painted papers. So I want to go ahead and print this. So going up to File, then Print, I'm going to make sure that I'm choosing my printer. The page I chose is 5, so I want to make sure that I select that. I don't want to go ahead and select all of them. I'm going to print in color. For the paper size, this will depend on the paper you have and your printer. So it's defaulted at US letter. I'll keep that on that for now. I'm going to go down and make sure that orientation is at portrait, and I'm going to choose scale to fit. So I want to go look at this page 5 here. So right now it has a white border. I have a borderless printer, so I could go ahead and choose that, and it's going to bring the collage paper right to the edge. If you have an A4 printer, an A4 paper, you can go ahead and choose A4. And since we chose scale to fit, it's going to shrink that collage paper to fit within that paper. And then for A4 borderless, it's going to readjust the size to go all the way to the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and choose what I have, which is US letter borderless. And I'm going to go ahead and print. So now I have my quarter sheet of collage paper printed. I'm going to go ahead and put that back in the printer so we can print the shapes right on top of it. So going back over to the computer and go to the Jeweled Leaves collection black and white templates, and we're going to go ahead and print this first page with the mandala shapes on top of that collage paper. So I want to go ahead and go to print, make sure my printer is selected. Here we're going to go ahead and print page 1. So here it's range 1. I'm going to keep it on print in color even though it's black and white. I'm going to make sure that I choose the exact same settings that I've chosen before, which is US letter borderless. So this will depend again on what you have, US letter or A4, but I'm choosing US letter borderless. I'm going to make sure it's on portrait, and I'm going to go ahead and scale to fit and then print. So now I have my mandala shapes on my Teal Tango collage paper. So going back over to the computer, because we're going to want to do the same thing with the mandala template. So this is the mandala template, and for this one, we're going to go ahead and choose a full sheet of collage paper. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down until I hit the full sheets, and I'm going to choose one of the painted papers again. So I have 4 different painted papers, and I'm going to go ahead and choose the first one here, which is page 17. And I'm going to go ahead and print that. So File, Print, make sure I've chosen my printer. Here we're choosing page 17. And I'm going to scroll down till I see 17 on the side here. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same settings that I did before. So for me, I'm doing borderless. If you're doing the US letter or the A4, you'll choose that. So I'm going to do borderless and scale to fit, and then go ahead and print. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my collage paper, put it back in the printer, and I'm going to print the mandala template on top of this. So going back over to the computer, I want to print page 2. So go up to File, Print, always making sure that I select my printer here. I'm printing page 2. I'm keeping it at print and color, paper size. I always want to make sure that I've chosen the same settings. So borderless, scale to fit, and then print. And here's the mandala template on the Teal Tango full sheet of collage paper. Here I have the mandala shapes on the Teal Tango quarter sheet, and then the mandala template on the full sheet here. The first thing that I want to do is to cut this into 4 sections. So I'm going to use my paper trimmer here. You can use a large pair of scissors if you don't have a paper trimmer. And then the next thing I want to do is to separate these sections or these clusters of shapes. And I'm going to grab my small pair of scissors, and I'm going to just cut between these clusters. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different clusters of shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for each of these. Okay, so now I have all the clusters of shapes separated. And then the next thing I want to do is to cut out each shape. And I'm going to cut them out on the outside of the black line. So by going on the outside, I'll make sure that they fit onto the mandala template here. So I'm going to grab this first one and then cut around it. And what I'm trying to do here is to keep this whole part that's going to be scrap. I want to try to keep that in one piece. We'll be able to use that for collage fodder for other projects. So just going shape by shape. And if you can't keep that intact, that's okay. You'll still be able to piece them together or use the pieces in your collages. But I like the little challenge of trying to keep it all together. So I showed you that some of the big pieces, and then for the small, the same thing. They're a little bit trickier to get around. But just maneuver as best you can. And for these, I do the same thing. I try to keep that background intact. So what I'm going to do is cut out all the shapes off camera, and then I'll come back when I have them all cut out. So I'm back with all of my shapes cut out. I have my mandala that I printed on the Teal Tango collage paper, and then I did manage to keep the backgrounds intact. So I have those pieces over here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is lay out the shapes on my mandala, and I'm going to just go ahead and just see what I can come up with using these different papers. Now these ones on top are the exact same paper as the background, so I'm not going to be using those to lay on this, but I'll give you an idea of what to do with those. And then there are enough to make 4 different mandalas here, but today I'm going to just go ahead and make this one. So I'm going to go ahead and just lay them down. Okay, so this is what I decided on, and for these here that are the same as the background, if I want, I could go ahead and layer them on top of some of the other shapes. So that's a nice thing to do with them. We can also use them as collage fodder for other projects or along the borders. If we decide to put this on canvas. So that's one of the things that I could do. I'm going to take these off. I may be missing one. Oh, there it is. I thought my cat was my cat was crawling around my workspace, so I thought for a moment that one of these had disappeared, but it was actually hidden. So maybe I will go ahead and do something like that, which is pretty cool. The other thing I could do is extend any of these out. So, I mean, I could layer any of them or extend them out. If I do extend them out, I do want to keep in mind what kind of canvas or substrate that I'm going to be putting it on, because I don't want it to go outside the boundaries of that. So since I haven't decided on that yet, I'm going to do what I have here. So what I like to do is just move everything out. Off the template. And then I have my Mod Podge here. I have a small Mod Podge brush. I also have a wet and dry cloth so I can keep my hands and my workspace clean. And then I'm going to just go ahead and start gluing these down with the Mod Podge. And when I'm placing the Mod Podge to glue down the shapes, I like to try to keep my brush strokes all in one direction. So I'm just going to go up and down. So what I mean is, instead of going this way for this one, this way for this one, I'm going to do them all with my brush strokes going in the same direction. That's just in case when it dries, sometimes you can see some of the brush strokes if you're looking at it from a certain angle, so having them all in the same direction is nice. So I'll go ahead and get all of these glued down. And before I do that, I'm putting enough on there so that I can slide it around. If I do too thin of a coat of the Mod Podge, then it's gonna stick where I place it, and sometimes I don't place it in the exact right spot. So I want to be able to move it around a little bit. Okay, so I've gone ahead and glued down all the pieces that fit onto the pre-made template. And then I have these pieces that I wanted to glue on top of these here. I'm going to just clean my hands off. They're starting to get sticky and that can end up ruining the paper. So I like to try to be mindful of that because every once in a while I'll forget and then I'll put my hands down and it pulls off the color off the paper. Okay, so here I'm just going to eyeball it because there's no lines for this. I'm putting these in as an addition. So just looking at these and just trying to line them up as best I can. Okay, so this is looking really beautiful as it is. The last thing that I want to be sure to do is to coat the entire surface with a Mod Podge, and I'm going to just move these pieces out of my way here. And for that I have a large brush. You could do it with a small brush, but the large brush gets it on more evenly. So I'm going to just go ahead, and I'm working on a silicone mat, so I'll be able to easily wash this off. Just making sure that I'm coating the entire surface, because any areas that aren't coated, if I'm putting those acrylic markers down, they'll get soaked up into the paper. And if I make a mistake, I'm not going to be able to wash them off. I want to make sure everything's coated. And there we are. I'm going to put this aside and let this dry. So it's starting to stick to my surface a little bit. So put that aside. I'm going to go ahead and clean up this workspace here. And then at this point, what I want to do is decide on what I'm going to do with these scraps here. I could save them so that I could put them on another collage. So I can, let me just take this. For example, use these directly on a collage. So any of them. The other, and then I can add doodles, different things. The other thing I like to do is put them on a piece of white paper. I can glue them down here, and then I can create doodles within these shapes and use that as collage fodder. So at this point, I think I'm going to go ahead and glue all of these down. I'm going to commit to that. And for that, I guess I could use my large brush. So just coating the paper. And then piecing them together as best I can. I just get enough of that Mod Podge on there so that they can slip around. I'm not going to worry about if they're perfectly aligned because, again, it's collage fodder. It'll be nice however it is. Okay, so I've got that back just like a jigsaw puzzle. And now I'm going to coat the entire surface, sealing up that collage paper with the Mod Podge. Okay, so I'm going to lift this up and then I'll move it to the side and clean my workspace off. And then at this point also, I'm done with this brush. This one can go in my container with the cap on. So that can stay until I use it later today. This one I want to wrap with some plastic wrap. So this will keep it from drying out until I wash it at the end of my session. I like to keep all of my extra pieces in a container like this because I'm going to continue working on the Teal Tango collection this week. I want these handy for my other collages if I decide to use them. I could also create more mandalas if I want to use some of the other backgrounds from the Teal Tango collection, or if I want to try to add details to the border and edges of my mandala, I could do that. So that can stay like that, and then we'll let these two pieces dry. And then the next step will be adding doodles to both of them. And we can review the guided doodling sheets. This was from week 1 where we did lines and circles. So we created the marks within the shapes, outside the shapes, found ways to connect the mandala shapes here. And then this morning session, we did triangles and dots, and here's a whole bunch of really interesting ideas to do connections and doodles within the shape. So we can use some of these ideas for inside of these here, and then of course use these for the mandala. So I'll let these dry and then I'll be back. All right, I'm back and everything is dry. Now my mandala is a little bit wrinkled right now because of the Mod Podge soaking in. And what I'm going to do is, I'll do this one second. I'm going to put this into the scanner bed of my printer so that I can lay it flat, and then the pressure from the scanner will flatten this out. You could also try putting it in a book if yours is wrinkled, or put a book on top of it. As long as it's dry, it shouldn't stick to anything. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to start doodling on the scrap sheet here. What I have is, these are scrap pieces of paper from the sampler, and these have been coated with Mod Podge. I have my tray of supplies that I use when I'm doing acrylic markers. I have a selection of markers here that go along with my palette. So I have the red purple, the reds, my orange red, orange, the yellow orange. I've got the blue greens, which are teal, and then black and white. The other things I have here are a jar with some water on it, some cotton swabs. This is so I'll dip the cotton swab in the water. If I make a mistake, I can wash that off. And I have some baby wipes here, and these are to clean the tips of my markers if I need to. So I'll put those there. And then I'm going to keep my doodle sheets handy to the side. I want to be able to scan those if I'm trying to come up with ideas. The other thing I want to do is grab my journal, my sketchbook, and I have it here. And I want to also just take a look at the sketches that I made last week, because I may be able to pull ideas from this for my doodles. So I'm going to put that above. I typically like to start with black. You can start with whatever you'd like, but I kind of like the style of black outlines, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm testing the marker first on this scrap piece, and then I'm going to just go ahead and start doodling within the white spaces. Here I've done a combination. Some are inspired by things in my sketchbook, others by my doodle sheets, others were just stuff that came out of my mind. All right, so I've done all of my sketching and doodling with my black acrylic marker. I'm going to go ahead and cap that. And what I decided to do is do pretty much the same thing within each of the clusters. Sometimes I try to do something different with every single one, but I wasn't feeling like that's the way I wanted to go today. One thing I should have mentioned before I started was that sometimes I do keep this before I start doodling as a master and then make a copy and then doodle on that. So that's up to you if you want to try that. At this point, I want it to dry just a little bit, and then I'm going to go back and use the colored markers to go in there and add some more detail. Okay, so all the black is dry now, and what I'm going to do is choose one of my colors here and just start adding some color to different areas. All right, I'm all done. And I'm absolutely loving this. I love the color palette for the Teal Tango. Let's pull it out again. One of the things that I love contemplating is how things look when you're using colors that are right next to each other in the color wheel. So if we look at this, this is the yellow, orange, orange, and the orangish red, so that they all are in order there, versus when we're jumping around. So here we have the red purple against the yellow orange there. So we've gotten really separated there. So those really stand out next to each other where these flow together. And then how does the blue green look next to things? So when we're doing it across from, or when we're doing the blue green next to the orange versus, let's see if I did any of the blue green right next to the reds. But just, it's a really, really nice way anyhow to just explore colors on the color wheel and start getting a sense of why things may look really nice together. I hope you enjoyed this. Now, we were going to move on to the mandala. I'm going to go check it now. And it is getting nice and flat, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to call today a day. There was a lot of stuff going on, and what I'll do is I'll get this done on video. It might be a short, and then when it's done, we'll explore it at the end of the week at Creative Possibilities Recap. I'll show you what I came up with for that. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had fun doing this. One of the things that I may go back and do, as you know, I like black outlines, so I may go ahead and outline all of these shapes. Sometimes I like to just spend the time to do that. So I may or may not do that, but I'll show it to you at the end of the week on Saturday. Thank you so much for joining me.